Hi everyone. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Moynihan report. I did speak about this briefly when I did have a channel in the past. The report was written in 1965 by the senator at the time named Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and his studies were basically talking about the destruction of, or what he considered to be the destruction or the demise of the Black American family. Now, I'm not going to get into the bulk, the big, the part, the huge part of the findings, because I don't want this channel to specifically focus on Black Americans. But there was one part that I never really hear people talk about, and it's a part within the report that he briefly mentions Puerto Ricans. Now, I know that this is a really old report. I know that it also had a lot of criticisms, and it still does to this day. There's plenty of people that would say that they've debunked this report. And I think if you do read it, which I would suggest everybody to read this, you would have a better understanding of how things were at that time for the Black American family. And with the little glimpse that I'm going to show you of what he says about Puerto Ricans, how our experiences were very similar to that of Black Americans. So, all the way, I want to say, because it's really far in the report. So, this is page 39, right? Again, this is a really old report, so when you find the PDF, the pages are going to be, it's not going to look as clear as it would with anything modern. But at the bottom here, it says, in 1952, when the New York City Youth Board set out to test the validity of these 5 factors as predictors of delinquency, a problem quickly emerged. The GLUEX sample consisted of white boys, mainly Irish, Italian, Lithuanian, and English descent. However, the youth board was 44% Negro and 14% Puerto Rican. And the frequency of broken homes within these groups was out of proportion to the total number of delinquents in the population. And this is something that people don't really talk about with Puerto Ricans. And this is one of the common themes that we have shared. And this is not just Puerto Ricans. I've heard this from with regards to other Latino groups, that this is very popular, where there's the broken families, and in a lot of cases with Latinos, a lot of men abandon their children. Now, I'm not trying to put this as the main issue with us, and that I'm not trying to say that it's the be all end all of our problems, because there was way more to it than that with us. There's also lots of issues on the women's side also, and I'll talk about that in another report that I found, where it discusses how the women, similar to what you hear about Black American women, how they have numerous children by different partners out of wedlock. And I wanted to show this because, again, this was written in 1965, so this is not I know that a lot of Latinos tend to blame everything with specifically New Yorkers on, we adapted the Black culture, and it has to do with the rap music and how they dress and how they carry themselves and their hood and da 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 da. This was written in 1965, so all of these things were happening way before the crack era, way before rap, way before twerking. these things have been going on for a whole lot longer than people realize and recognize. And I think that it pays to take note of that. Now, I know that people might go and say, well, you see, that's a New Yorican thing, because on the island, they don't do this, which is a lie. Because as a matter of fact, there's a lot of people on the island, a lot of men that have done the same thing and continue to do the same thing, where they abandon their children. As a matter of fact, this was written in 1965. My father was born in 1948, and his dad actually did the same with him. And that was one of the reasons why my father was so dedicated to being a father to my sister and I, and which is one of the reasons why he ended up getting sole custody of us, was because of the trauma that he went through his father, and how his father basically abandoned. And again, his father was from Puerto Rico, barely spoke English. And to my knowledge, I think he didn't speak English at all. And he totally abandoned my grandmother and my father and his siblings, and my grandmother ended up remarrying, and he ended up having children with other women. So I have cousins out there, and I have like aunts and uncles, half aunts, half uncles on his side that I've never even met. I could pass them in the street and I wouldn't even know that they're my relatives. So it pays to pay attention to some of these things that and these historical things that I can find, because again, and I've said this in one of my other videos like a few weeks ago, when I was talking about my the research that I've been like looking for and stuff that I've been trying to find, and you don't find too many recent things on Puerto Ricans, and I figured that something like this would be a good segue into how our problem started, and basically how we ended up in the position that we're in. But I want to like scroll all the way to the top of this. I would definitely suggest for people to read this. Like I said, this does have a lot of criticisms, and even when I learned about it in school, there was heavy criticisms for it, and the main reason being that this was a white man who wrote this about the black community, and people believed that a lot of the stuff that he was saying was coming from a place with very racist and hateful undertones. But if you read it, to me, in my opinion, I took it like that wasn't necessarily the full story. From when I look back at it, it really wasn't. But that's just my opinion. I mean, I think that maybe to some people, I can see why the language might have seemed a little bit harsh, but even to me, this doesn't even seem that harsh. But yeah, so anyway, this was just a test run. I wanted to see how this would go. I'm not sure if I'm going to post this or not. Again, I really would suggest that people read a little bit about the Moynihan report if you can, and just kind of, it shows how and why our community, the Puerto Rican or the New Yorican community, is compared so heavily to that of the black community. We have a lot more things in common, and it's a whole lot less to do with race, and it has a whole lot more to do with class. Because at that time, they weren't differentiating the Puerto Ricans. They weren't saying, oh, it's the white ones are doing good and the black ones are being left in the hood, and no, that's not the case at all. Plenty of white Puerto Ricans, myself included, grew up in the hood, and I grew up around plenty of them who looked very similar to me. So it's also a class thing. Anyway, I'm gonna go for now, and I guess I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.